We're here with Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley. Senator, thank you for your time.
Sure.
Big hearings with regards to Judge Kavanaugh. When do you expect those hearings to begin?
Well, I won't have the slightest idea until we find out the massive amount of material. I know about 300 decisions he's written, but beyond that, I don't have a clue of it. But I could give you a rough figure from other previous nominees for the Supreme Court. Generally, from July 9th, when this was announced, the average has been about 65 to 70 days. So if it follows that usual pattern, then we would late August or early September. But that's pretty much a guess at this point.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned about the documents that and looking through all of the Judge Kavanaugh's recent decisions as well as other things that he has drafted. I want to ask you about his time when he was associate counsel to former President George W. Bush between 2001 and 2003.
Yeah.
His previous confirmation fight was a bit controversial. Do you expect that you'll get those documents from that period? Do you want to see those documents?
Well, of course, the senators that were in the Senate at that time that had a chance to visualize them, you wouldn't think that they would have to have those again. But that's one of the issues that we're waiting for the White House and wherever else. Somebody even says some of these documents might be at the archives, some of them at the Bush library, as an example, because he worked in George W.'s White House. So we just have to wait until we get a feel of how many pages or emails and all that stuff.
His positions on torture, for example, are important for this confirmation process?
I haven't determined that yet. I have determined this, that going through other Supreme Court justice nominees, there's certain things that have just regularly been put before the committee as documents. So I'm starting out with that precedent, and I don't want to say anything beyond that precedent at this point. Another factor comes up, though, in regard to if the Democrats want a lot of documents, and most Democrats have already said that they're going to vote no. If you're going to vote no, why do you have to know?
Right. Do you expect that this will be that every Republican will fall in line? I mean, when you look at the math, it would appear that he has right now a pretty clear process to be concerned.
I can only draw that conclusion from the fact that Republicans generally want somebody that's going to be glued to the rule of law and the Constitution, and be a person that looks at the law and the facts of the case and leave their own personal views out of it. And it seems to me that Kavanaugh falls very much into that pattern of what Republicans would want to have on the Supreme Court. Now, that doesn't mean some Democrats don't want the same person on the Supreme Court, but really we see a judge as somebody interpreting the law, and a lot of times you think that liberals would like to have somebody that really kind of rewrites the law and goes beyond congressional intent. So we want somebody that sticks to the law and are going to be interpreters of the law and leave legislation and writing of law to those of us in the legislative branch of government. That's no business of the courts.
And you've called him superb, and you met with him yesterday, and it appears these conversations are moving along and proceeding as they should.
Here's the other thing, though, that ought to give a lot of people confidence, is the fact that this is the first president in the history of the United States as a candidate said a list of people that he's going to appoint to the Supreme Court. And so it isn't just like all of a sudden 36 hours we got to decide who this is. People have had 2 years to decide who he is. And people that are really deep in the law have had 12 years of his being on the D.C. circuit to read his opinions and know where he's coming from.